Hello, Gray Mahern here, Product Manager at Corvil, responsible for our security analytics. I'm going to take a few moments to show you how Corvil can help you be more proactive in tackling ransomware that may crop up within your corporate network. What we see here is a dashboard provided by Corvil. It really gives a helicopter view of any potential ransomware activity that may be occurring right now within your network. We see, for example, the percentage of your hosts which are observed as being attacked, the number of active clients or hosts which are infected right now, and the number of files which have been observed as encrypted by the ransomware. Here we get a view on a breakdown of the outbound communication associated with the ransomware activity. So we see the initial reconnaissance, we see the infection, in this case using Dridex command and control, and then ultimately we see the exfiltration, which can involve the decryption portal, funneling or exfiltrating data out of your environment. Here we see a breakdown over time of the associated activity over the network. So we see the files being transferred to remote systems, and this will include files to initiate the encryption activity on hosts. And that activity you see here in a blow-by-blow report or view. So what we see here is the malicious files being delivered to a remote host via PSExec. And we see the encryption activity kicking off, and then we see the files themselves in their initial form and then ultimately their encrypted form. And finally, we see this file being dropped onto the system, which essentially gives guidance to a client on how they can go about decrypting their files. Down below here, what we see is a very useful view we find with clients. Basically, it's a stack rank of the hosts within your environment which you should prioritize to triage and investigate. So you can see here for each of these hosts, the Corvil solution is tracking multiple indicators. So the rate of transfer and the volume of transfer from the system, but also any reconnaissance scans toward the system, any remote access, authentication activity, whether failed or successful involving a privileged user, file access associated with the ransomware, and any other outbound communication involving DNS or HTTP to known malicious or suspicious servers on the internet. So we've got some good information here, gives us a good high-level view, but now we want to really drill in, for example, to this specific host and get much more granularity on exactly what's been occurring on that host. So let's go to the network data view to get that. Now we get a really clear view of all the application level conversations and activity that have been occurring. In this case, we're looking at some SAMUS ransomware, so let's have a look down and see exactly what's been going on this system. First, what we can see is there's been inbound scanning attempts. In this case, looking to exploit a vulnerability specific to a JBoss server, but we also see some other general activity of scans. We can also see then an outbound connection from the system to access an exploit kit. We can see the exact external server that's connected to here. We then see a null session being established to a domain controller within the environment. We can see that there's a tool accessed to aid the acquisition of credentials. And then we see a few connection attempts to the system using different user credentials. So we see root being used, admin, and ultimately it looks like there's a successful connection with djones admin, so this specific admin account. Now, what we see next is another null session connection. This is djones again. And now, going down a little bit further, we're starting to see the ransomware activity occurring. So what we're seeing here is a connection being established across the mapped drive to admin dollar. And we're seeing PSExec being leveraged to basically deliver the malware to the remote system. So we see two files being copied across to the remote system. Then we see the Microsoft Windows encryption service kick in And essentially what we can see happening is these specific files are being encrypted and being given a specific suffix. Okay, so let's continue down and see what happens next. After those files are encrypted, what we can see here is another file is dropped onto the system, which basically gives the client guidance on how they can decrypt the files as they need to. And finally, what we can see here is a connection out to the decryption portal by the client. And what we can see along with that is also some tunneling activity, which is kicked off on the system to funnel some sensitive information or PII from the system to another external server. But what about if you need to actually get a copy of the files in question that were leveraged as part of this ransomware to aid further forensic analysis? Well, ransomware in general has a nasty habit of cleaning up its files after it's performed its activity. But thankfully, since the Corvil box is doing full packet capture, we can actually leverage the recorded packets to historically grab a copy of the files to aid further investigation, or indeed the relay of those files to a third party for further forensics or file-based analysis. So here we can see the option to export the PCAP, and it's automatically zoomed in and selected the specific time window that I was using for my analysis. So let's go ahead and export the PCAP. And if we open it up quickly within Wireshark, what we have here is the option to essentially export the files that were involved. So what we see here are the exact files, the malicious files themselves, and then also the PNG, or the instructions that were left for the client. Let's save this off and open it up just to demonstrate. So here we have the PNG, and if we open this up, what we will see is the exact ransom note that's been received. So there you have it. That is how Corvil can help you be more proactive in monitoring and tackling ransomware activity within your environment. This is just one example of how Corvil Security Analytics can help you be more proactive in your security operations. Visit the Corvil website, corvil.com, for further information. Thanks for watching.